Harry spray-painted "Go Home" on the fence, laughing at the black family that had just moved in. Little did he know that these people were his new landlords, and their response would turn his life upside down. But let's start from the very beginning. The Williams family, tired of the noisy city life, had finally moved into their new suburban home. Daniel and Kimberly were thrilled about the fresh air, while their teenage son Joshua envisioned evenings on the new terrace. But their joy was short-lived. As they began unpacking, the neighbor from across the street, Harry, a short man with piercing eyes and an unmistakably hostile smile, peeked out from his window. He stared at the Williams family for a moment, but said nothing. The next morning, as Daniel stepped outside to grab the newspaper, his heart sank. Scrawled in bright red paint across the fence were the words, "Go home." "Kim, come look at this," Daniel called to his wife, trying to contain his anger. Kimberly stepped out, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. Joshua, hearing the commotion, rushed outside and snapped a photo of the graffiti. "Is this because of us?" Joshua asked, looking at his parents. Kimberly tried to comfort him, but Daniel was seething. From across the street came the sound of raucous laughter. Harry, sitting on his porch with a beer can in hand, nodded in their direction. "Well, how do you like it?" he shouted, a smirk spread across his face. Kimberly suggested calling the police, but Daniel knew proving anything in such cases was often an uphill battle. "He's just a coward," Daniel said, clenching his fists. "But I won't stoop to his level." Still, Kimberly insisted they document everything. Together, they took photos of the fence, determined to gather evidence. But the situation didn't end with just one hateful message. Harry escalated his provocations, dumping trash near the fence, hosting noisy parties, and loudly voicing his opinions about his new neighbors. One evening, he even angled a floodlight directly at the Williamses' bedroom windows, flooding their space with harsh, intrusive light. "We just got here, and already this," Kimberly said, on the verge of tears. "We're not giving up," Daniel said firmly. "This is our home now, and he'll come to understand that soon enough." Though it seemed like the situation could only get worse, deep down, each of them believed that the truth would eventually come to light. The morning after the fence incident, the Williams family discovered a new stunt from Harry. As they stepped outside, they were greeted by a pile of garbage, scattered across their lawn, clearly dumped there by their neighbor. "This is crossing the line," Daniel growled as he began picking up the empty cans and torn newspapers. Harry, as usual, sat on his porch with a smug grin plastered across his face. Kimberly once again suggested calling the police, and this time, Daniel agreed. But when the officer arrived, the situation took a disheartening turn. The policeman, upon recognizing Harry, simply dismissed their concerns. "This is just a neighborly dispute," he said nonchalantly. "Try to handle it yourselves." Harry stood nearby, puffing on a cigarette, his smirk growing wider. "Good luck with that, folks," he jeered as the officer drove away. Daniel felt helpless, but Joshua had a different idea. He started recording everything on his phone. That night, Harry turned up his music to an obnoxious volume and hurled loud insults, not missing the opportunity to mention the Williamses' race. From behind the curtain, Joshua captured it all on video. "We need to show the world this," Joshua insisted. Kimberly was hesitant, but Daniel, worn down by his own powerlessness, agreed. The video quickly went viral on social media, racking up hundreds of supportive comments. Strangers urged the Williams family to stand their ground and shared their own stories of resilience. Among those who saw the video was a reporter from a local news channel. He reached out to the family, offering to cover their story. "This might bring the attention we need," Daniel said, feeling a flicker of hope as the tides began to turn. Meanwhile, Harry started noticing a shift in how the neighbors treated him. At a neighborhood meeting, Mr. Jenkins, an elderly resident who had lived in the area for decades, spoke up loudly. "I've lived next to you for 20 years, Harry, and I've never been more ashamed." Harry tried to laugh it off, but he couldn't ignore the fact that his support was waning. Amidst the growing tension, a lawyer from an anti-discrimination organization contacted the Williams family. "We're ready to assist you legally," he assured them. Such actions are unacceptable, and we'll make sure they face consequences. This newfound support bolstered the family's resolve. They no longer felt isolated in their struggle. For the first time in days, a sense of justice seemed within reach, but none of them could have anticipated the surprising twist that was about to unfold. After the Williams family story gained traction on social media and in the press, the situation began spiraling out of control. Frustrated by the attention focused on him, Harry decided to escalate further. He filed a complaint with the local municipality, accusing the Williamses of violating neighborhood maintenance regulations. Soon after, a municipal inspector arrived to assess the property. "Your neighbor filed a complaint," he explained tiredly. But after thoroughly inspecting the house and yard, the inspector simply shrugged. "Everything here is perfect. I honestly don't see the point of this complaint." It was becoming clear to Daniel that Harry's behavior was growing more aggressive. One evening, as Harry passed by their home, he yelled, "You won't last here! This is our neighborhood, not yours!" But instead of reacting with anger, Daniel gave him a knowing smile. He already held a piece of information Harry didn't know. Before purchasing their home, Daniel and Kimberly had also acquired the entire plot of land, which included not only their house, but also the neighboring properties, one of which was Harry's. This fact came to light during a meeting with their lawyer. "You know what's fascinating?" the lawyer remarked, clearly intrigued. "Harry rents his house from your company." At first, the family was stunned, but soon they realized that fate had handed them the perfect tool to fight back. Daniel chose not to confront Harry immediately. Instead, he organized an official tenant meeting and invited Harry. Oblivious, Harry showed up with his usual arrogance, assuming this was another opportunity to assert his dominance. However, the moment Daniel opened the meeting with the words, "As your landlord, I'd like to discuss a few matters," Harry's demeanor shifted. His face turned pale. "What did you just say?" he stammered. Kimberly calmly presented the ownership documents. "You live here because of us," she said firmly, "and now we demand respect." The neighbors who had gathered for the meeting were stunned. Many of them began expressing their support for the Williamses, while some openly condemned Harry's behavior. Harry, desperate to save face, tried to accuse the family of provoking him, but his words fell on deaf ears. For the first time, Harry found himself in a vulnerable position. The Williamses gave him a choice. Either he drastically changed his behavior, or his lease would be terminated. This marked the first real blow to Harry's confidence. He realized he was losing the comfort zone he had taken for granted. Meanwhile, the Williams family felt a sense of justice for the first time since moving in. But they knew this wasn't the end of the story. There were still challenges ahead. Humiliated and seething, Harry locked himself in his house and didn't show his face for days. But things only got worse for him. Joshua's video of Harry's racist outbursts continued to spread, gaining traction in local media. Harry became the target of widespread condemnation. Neighbors avoided him, and some even openly voiced their discontent. His once comfortable world was falling apart. Meanwhile, the Williams family wasn't standing idle. Kimberly partnered with an anti-discrimination organization to launch an initiative aimed at raising awareness about racism. They organized a neighborhood meeting, inviting all the residents. At the gathering, Daniel stood before the crowd and shared his story. "We moved here to build a new life," he began. "Instead, we were met with hatred and prejudice, but we believe that together we can create a community built on respect and understanding." Unexpectedly, Harry showed up. He looked worn out, but to everyone's surprise, he asked to speak. "I was wrong," he began, his voice shaky. For the first time, he seemed sincere. "I didn't know who you were, and I acted terribly. Now I see how wrong I was. If you'll give me a chance, I want to make things right." A tense silence fell over the room. Some neighbors exchanged skeptical glances, while others seemed willing to give Harry a chance. After a brief moment of thought, Daniel nodded. "Apologies are a start," he said, "but words need to be backed up by actions." The next day, Harry began cleaning up the trash he had previously scattered. He started helping neighbors with small tasks and even offered his support for community improvement projects. Slowly, neighbors began to notice the changes in him, though trust was not easily regained. Over time, the neighborhood truly began to transform. The Williams family organized a series of events for the community, including cleanup drives and street celebrations. Joshua launched a video project highlighting the stories of local residents to showcase the power of unity. Harry consistently participated, demonstrating his willingness to change. One day, he approached Daniel and quietly said, "Thank you for giving me a chance. You could have just evicted me, but you chose another path." Daniel smiled. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he replied. "The important thing is how you use it." The neighborhood, which had once been marred by hatred and conflict, became a community where people respected and supported one another. The Williams family didn't just become part of the neighborhood, they helped transform it for the better.